The Toronto Blue Jays are making some roster moves, some interesting ones at that. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as some injury updates. The Jays may be getting healthy, and they may be getting healthy soon. So we'll have that and much more coming up next. Welcome in, everybody, to Jays Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And not much to report back to you guys about the Toronto Blue Jays lately, but they have been making some moves and some interesting ones as well as some injury updates. So hopefully the Blue Jays can get back some players and be healthy down the stretch and get through the season in one piece because the playoffs are a foregone conclusion at this point. It's not going to happen. So maybe we can see some good things out of the young guys and some good things out of the guys returning to the lineup. But Nick, interesting stuff going down here, and the Blue Jays continue to be busy despite not having the greatest of seasons.
Yeah, they've been one of the more active teams when it comes to acquiring other teams' pitchers and just I guess leftover goods to a degree. So let's just dive right into it here. So there's some interesting things to go over, and obviously we have some injury updates that are a lot more promising going forward. We can see here that they claimed Emmanuel Ramirez off waivers from the Marlins and auctioned him to AAA. Jose Cuas has been designated for assignment, who made a video on a couple months or a few weeks ago. And again, so Jose Cuas was DFA'd. You got Emmanuel Ramirez coming back, and Paulo Espino cleared waivers, and he was DFA'd a while ago, or a week ago, and he's now in AAA Buffalo. So a lot of moving parts going on here. None of these are particularly exciting if you're a Jays fan, but at the same time, it kind of goes to show the lack of depth that they have in AAA, and that's something they're going to have to, kind of adjust next season, heading into this upcoming offseason. And Peter Emmanuel Ramirez is not too exciting. He posts like a 3.7 ERA in AAA for the Marlins there, and now he's going to be in Bison's for some depth. But that being said, we signed Tommy Nance a while ago. We didn't think he was going to have a huge impact, and he's ended up being one of the better pickups, we'll say, even though it's not for a playoff spot, for at least taking innings from the Blue Jays' other pitchers that they lost due to injuries throughout the year.
So what you're telling me is we should plan the World Series parade. That's what I'm
Right now.
gathering here, Nick, for 2024.
Yep.
No, but in all seriousness, these guys are just depth pieces, and also heading into next season, they're not going to play a massive role if the
No.
Blue Jays look to be competitive. And if they are playing a massive role, then their wish of being competitive in 2025 is not going to come to fruition. So it's great to have organizational depth and have those guys that can come up in a pinch with some major league experience, but they're not dominant arms by any stretch. And the one aspect that needs a complete overhaul heading into the to next season is that bullpen. Are moves like this, are minor moves like this going to get that job done? No, but that's all you can do at this point of the season. The trade deadline is passed, and you're only able to acquire minor league assets, and the Jays have done well in doing that and making sure that they don't overwork a lot of their guys that are going to be there for next season, and they're getting the most out of these minor leaguers that they're picking up. But hey, I mean, they're minor moves at best, and I wouldn't look too much into them heading into next season if the Blue Jays stay true to their word and say that they want to be competitive. Because if they do, they're going to have to sign some big time names in free agency or swing a couple of big trades, and that'll just have to be the start of it. There's a lot of work to be done this offseason, and these moves like this don't do anything and even putting a dent into that work that they have to do.
Yeah, they're basically signing a bunch of flyers, calling some of them up, seeing who can stick at the major league level to maybe have an impact next season in the bullpen. But again, Emmanuel Ramirez is 30 years old, nothing too exciting, but still moves. So we had to cover that. So now let's move on to some more important updates here. And this is for the Blue Jays injury updates. You have an update on Jake Bloss as well, who made another start here. So just a bunch of things going through. And I want to start with this, Peter. After a rocky outing last week, Jake Bloss pitched a couple days ago, and he bounced back really, really well. He went 4 innings. He gave up no runs, 81 pitches. He still struggled with command a little bit, throwing only 44 strikes on 81 pitches. But the Blue Jays are still working through when and where his next outing will be. A big league start is a possibility for his next outing, which would be in a few days, so early next week. Peter, this is actually pretty important because we know that Jake Bloss had a really rough outing last time. It's what delayed him from being called up, and now he bounced back from a brutal start to have a dominant one, and this is extremely encouraging for a pitcher who, at this point, is the Jays' most highly touted pitching prospect that's healthy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even look at the stat line, to be honest. What is most exciting for me is the 81 pitches. Like, you could see that his workload is starting to lengthen a little bit, and that's good. Like, we were watching him maybe go about 50 to 65 pitches an outing, and he's starting to slowly creep up into the 70s, the 80s, and I don't know if he'll get to 100 by the end of the season. I don't know if that's smart for him to do that, but he's still got a lot of refining as well to take care of in the minor leagues. Like if you look at his prospect profile, it says ETA, MLB ETA is 2026. So even though he had a cup of coffee with the Houston Astros, that was more out of necessity. That's because they didn't have anybody else in that rotation to cover those innings. So having Jake Bloss and him being as talented as he is was a reason for the Astros to call him up, but I don't think he's ready for the big leagues. It would be nice to see him start a couple of games or one game at least before the end of the season for the Blue Jays just to see, just to gauge how he is right now against major league competition. But heading into next year, considering his workload, I don't know if he's going to be ready for a full-time starting spot at the start of next year. I just don't know if that's smart for the Blue Jays to rush him along that much, and maybe that'll help them be more competitive if they deem that he is ready. But at the end of the day, he's a prospect, and you want to make sure that he develops because we've seen time and time again the Blue Jays maybe rush some guys and that could be a detriment on their development, and then they end up not becoming the players that we think that they can be. So Jake Bloss, it's nice to see him throw 81 pitches, but 44 strikes out of that many pitches is just not going to get it done at the big league level. You're in some trouble if you're going to have command issues like that. So he's got a lot of things to tweak and a lot of things to clean up, but this is a good step in the right direction, especially after giving up 9 earned runs or whatever it was in his last outing.
Yep, and it seems like again they want to get like you said a sneak peek of him, and it could be as soon as next week. So keep an eye out for that. It's gonna be very interesting. We also have some injury updates. So Jordan Romano has begun throwing and at the Blue Jays complex in Dunedin, which is good. No timetable for a return. Probably won't come back for this season. But Peter, he is at least going to hopefully be healthy into next season. He's going to play a crucial role. I mean, we forget sometimes that he was out. He's been out most of this year, and that's part of the reason the bullpen was struggling as much as it was earlier on in the season. And then Bichette ran the bases yesterday and will again tomorrow. He's doing baseball activities in the field. He'll stay with the team through a trip to Atlanta, and rehab assignment could come soon. So Bichette is on his way back very soon. He will probably get into a game this season. Maybe it's towards the end, similar to Relvis Martinez, but it's very interesting on that front. And Jordan Romano, again, a guy who has been out for a while, kind of forgot about it a little bit, is also making progress to come back to the Blue Jays. So again, it's all lost at this point for this year, but at least some encouraging signs heading into the offseason for the Jays.
Yeah, and he was a huge loss for them this season. Even though he hadn't really been pitching well before he went down with injury, he's been one of the more consistent closers in baseball in the past couple of years. So we got to keep that in mind. And we talk about this overhaul of the bullpen. He's basically going to act as an off-season addition,
Yep.
the way that he has pitched in the past few years. So that's going to be huge to get him back. And hopefully Eric Swanson as well, who just never really got going this season after that stuff that happened with his son in spring training, and I guess he just wasn't right mentally. I'm gonna give him a pass for this season, even though he hasn't been good. It's tough. It's tough to go through that kind of stuff and then forget about it all and just return to baseball activity, which is what Eric Swanson had to do, despite taking some time off and being around his family. So yeah, they're missing a few key additions to the bullpen, but getting Eric Swanson back to full health and full capability, as well as Jordan Romano, will just be a huge help to this bullpen. And you add on top of that, they have Chad Green and Genesis Cabrera, who has pitched in some high leverage situations for them this year. I don't think it's all that bad, but you still need to add a few more pieces in the offseason or at the next deadline, whenever it is, because relief pitching does not come very easy and it's very hard to forecast from year to year. So getting those guys back to full strength is going to be massive for this team going forward. But still, you still have a lot more work to do in other areas of your roster as well.
Yeah, they have a good foundation, but they have to go out and actually make some acquisitions they failed to do last year, both in the bullpen and the offensive front. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. A lot of stuff is going down, but ultimately the season is starting to come to a close. So hopefully we can continue to see the young guys mash and maybe win some games. With that, I'll wrap it up. See you guys tomorrow.